Hi everybody! So this is a lesson to do negative painting these Aranda orchids. I got them in a bouquet, but we're going to focus on just these flowers. Let's go! So I taped up my paper, and these are what I'm going to use. A large brush, a medium brush, a pencil, and some watercolor. So step one, we're gonna mix the lightest color of this orchids. So it's kind of like a light yellow, and I mix a little bit of this golden brown into it. And this wash doesn't have to be even. You can be quite generous, and the consistency is between tea and coffee. Alright, step two, using a pencil, let's start to draw the outline of some of these orchids. So here I'm doing one first, slightly off center. And then let's do a second one, slightly off the page, up here, using my reference quite loosely. So these two are not overlapping, they're separate. And then down below here to the right, I'll do another one. So I am not using this reference exactly because they're overlapping quite a lot. So now I've got three. I think I'll do one more just off the page to the far left, like this. Step three, we are going to go back to watercolor, this time mixing a darker layer than the first layer. So I'm adding a bit more of this very light golden brown into my yellow mix, and I'm starting to put it down in focusing on the negative space around the orchids. So notice the fourth orchid rather, is slightly overlapping. So what I did there is that I actually painted the darker layer over it, because that orchid is under the first one. So you can use a very generous coffee consistency layer in this one. Notice that I actually load my brush a lot when I'm painting the inner part of the orchids. Yeah, so that fourth orchid, I actually painted all over that, so that would recede to the back, just like this. And then what I did is I have a bit of mix left, so I started loading these narrow areas with a bit more color, just so when it dries, it will dry slightly darker. So to speed it up, I use a hairdryer on the surface. Okay, now step four, we're going to repeat more pencil outline for some of the orchids that are behind these three orchids. The way I did this is to try to overlap them behind. Just like this. And then step five, we're going to repeat to another darker wash. So I'm mixing even more of this gold yellow and decided to use a little more red in there, in that mix. So notice that my mix is getting a little bit thicker here now. So we're going to repeat that step with the darker color. And this time you want to avoid that second pencil outline behind the first flower, just like this. And notice that the more layers you do, the less space you have. So your negative painting will become smaller and smaller as you repeat the steps. So, now I decided to add a little bit of green in my mix. And I have done already yet another pencil layer, if you notice there. And I'm basically just repeating that process with another pencil outline. Here's a closer look at that layer. Notice that the orchids are beginning to come out. Each layer will come out. So the next step, I'm now going to add dimension, add texture to all the different orchids. Oop, I missed this bit, right? So I'm going to add a topical layer now on top of these different layer orchids. But first I'm going to put in the little center of the flower area first. So the next step is adding a little bit of green and a little bit of black, but very, very weak tea consistency. This is going to be the texture layer on top, also the shadow layer. Notice that I start on the center of the flower, fanning outwards, adding just topical texture on the top leaves, the top petals, and then I continue to add more of these to the second, third layer of the petals. So if you'd like, you could think of all the other layer underneath should have a little bit of a shadow shape. So that is what I'm doing here. And then the final step, I just want to brighten up these petals a little bit. So I just mixed a very faint bright yellow and I just hover them above the top leaves just to brighten the color, bring back the vibrancy. That's all, folks. That's how you do it. So happy practicing and see you in the next video.